back to our next edition of the CBB Review Studio podcast. I am Dan Siegel, joined as always by my co-host Ben Anderson, and we are continuing here with our CBB rank countdown from 100 to 1, one team a day on college basketball review. We have team profiles that we are writing every single day, and on our CBB Review Studio show, we will count down and do an episode every 5 teams. So today we are doing 90 through 86. Ben, who do we have at 90?
We're going to start off our time here with the Richmond Spiders. This is an interesting one to put on the top 100s list, considering the amount of production that they lost from last year's team, most notably Tyler Burton, who was a big-time transfer out to Villanova. In addition, Matt Grace and Andre Gustafson were also starters, and they graduated there out of eligibility. And this will be an interesting test of Chris Mooney's availability or ability to take in transfers, because that's not necessarily what Richmond's really known for. They're known for more of their homegrown players that play there all 4 years. So I'm interested to see how the Spiders react to this new type of team transformation.
Yeah, and not only did they lose a lot, they were not good last year. They went 15-18, 7-11 in the A10, and the A10 was very bad last year. For as long as Chris Mooney has been tenured, I think it's been a lot of years at this point.
It'll be his 19th at Richmond. Yeah,
19. Wow. Okay. They've been pretty up and down over that time, and I think really what he's holding on to here in 2023, going into the 2023-24 season, is that A10 tournament title in 2022. But if you remember, they were not good. They were very disappointing in the regular season, and then they just made a little bit of a run. They won a game in the NCAA tournament. I forgot. I think it was Iowa.
They beat Iowa. They beat Keegan Murray. Yeah.
Right. But either way, I don't see. We all have a vote here at CB Review in these rankings. I did not put Richmond in my personal rankings. I don't think they belong in the top 100, but they are here, so we will talk about them. And yeah, I think where it starts with are Jordan King. You have that written down. He comes from East Tennessee State. There's Delani Hunt from Wagner. They weren't amazing last year. They're also coming from lower caliber competition. I think we could still call them lower caliber conferences even at this point. But who are some guys you're looking at to break out if Richmond were to belong here? If Richmond is a top 3 team in the A10, which we project them third as a site, why do you think that would be?
For me, I think Jordan King has to be the guy here, right? He's going to be basically handed the keys to this offense, especially with their few returners being more of background third, fourth options. If you're looking at Isaiah Bigelow and guys like Neil Quinn as well. So to have a scoring first guard like King, I think it's going to be really important. And in Richmond's defense and being ranked here, I feel like many power conferences would feel like King is a solid addition, right? But not necessarily the number one option. So it's a tricky line to take here. But I do think that if Jordan King can really show his worth at the A10 level, which isn't that far of a step up from the SoCon, I think they have a chance to be in the top half of the A10 in what should be an improved year from last year for the conference.
Yeah, for sure. I think Neil Quinn is another guy I'm looking at. He could break out maybe finally. He was a 7-foot center. He averaged, I think, close to 10 last year. I think that actually ends up being their leading scorer. Because if you look at Richmond's scoring distribution last year, it was Tyler Burton.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's going to be another team we'll talk about that has even more drastic measures in terms of one player having pretty much all of the scoring. But it was pretty much Tyler Burton. Like you said, he's off to Villanova. That'll be good for him. But, yeah, that's the Richmond Spiders. You got anything else?
No, I mean, I liked a lot of the teams that we've already talked about in the series more than the Spiders, but we're at 90, and it's feasible that they could make a run in the A10 tournament like they did 2 years ago.
Yeah. All right, 89, we have Yale, who is now under year number 25 of head coach James Jones. He's actually done a really fine job. The funny thing is he really struggled earlier on in his tenure, but 3 tournaments in their last 7. That's good for Yale. Yale has become one of these top-tier Ivy League basketball programs, and they are only Ivy in our CBB ranked top 100, coming off of a 21-win season, made it to the NIT. I am very high on this Yale team coming into this year, though. They return pretty much everybody besides EJ Jarvis. He's off to Florida, and that's a loss. That's not a detrimental loss, though. And just the guys that they're returning, a couple of the guys that they're bringing in, I am very high on these Yale Bulldogs.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a picture of consistency in an ever-changing college basketball landscape, look no further than Yale. This year, they bring back 4 double-digit scorers from last year's team. Like you mentioned, losing only Jarvis. I'm really interested to see if August Mahoney in particular can keep up an incredible nearly 47% from 3 clip. They shot the ball really well. They were top 50 in the country in 3-point percentage shooting as a team last season. So I'm really excited to see if that's continued, to be able to have some continued success in that area. One guy I do also want to bring up here, that Yale has a rare transfer. That's right. Northwestern transfer Casey Simmons is now on the team. He's a Massachusetts native, I believe, so he's from the Northeast. And he has that high major talent, athleticism that might be really beneficial in a new scene here in New Haven. If he can break out and maybe live up to his billing as a top 150 recruit in his high school class, that's a dangerous asset to have as an Ivy League team.
For sure, that was a guy I was looking at as well. It's one of the guys on the bench that is inexperienced, but if he could break out, then that would be just critical for Yale. But yeah, they have 4 returning starters, like you said, double-digit scorers. They're a great shooting team, but it starts with how good they are at distributing the ball, the actions that they run. They're just a very well-coached team, like I said, with James Jones. So I definitely expect maybe not Mahoney to shoot 47% because that's just unsustainable for anybody, but for him to definitely shoot upward of 40%. They have a couple other guys that were 40% 3-point shooters. John Palakaitis, another guy. And yeah, this is a team that could be really, really good. Remember that Yale is not just an offensive team. They work really hard on the defensive end. They had good metrics there. I think this is one of the best Ivy League teams that we've seen in years.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason to think that anyone else other than Yale should be the favorite coming into the season. I'm really excited to see how this year goes for them. Dan, who do we have at number 88?
88, we have the Liberty Flames, who is now in Conference USA, a very depleted Conference USA, but they have Liberty. That is good for their basketball status, and they are our lone Conference USA team in our top 100. Ritchie McKay, he's done a phenomenal job with this program, so it's pretty much an assumption that they will be good. Now, being ranked 88 is actually kind of a down year for Liberty. I'll talk about that in a second, but let's just appreciate first off what Ritchie McKay has done with this program, because in his first year, they won 13 games. And then since then, 21 games, 22, 29, 30, 23, 22, last year, 25. So obviously they're losing leading scorer, all-time leading scorer in school history, top 25 of all time in terms of total points, Darius McGhee. That's why they're ranked 88 and not better. But man, I mean, they're going to win 20 games. That you just got to assume that for Liberty, and it's not like they're bringing back a bad team. So definitely Liberty Flames, a program we have to recognize even without Darius McGhee.
Yeah, absolutely. They do have some pieces here for sure. I'm a little bit more worried than in years past about this Flames team, though. And the reason I am is because of their size issue that they have across the board. I mean, if you're going to start a 5'9" point guard in Colin Porter, who is a very good player, but still 5'9", and to be honest, McGhee was 5'8", but he could get away with it because he was such an electric offensive player that it didn't really matter. And then to start 5'9", 6'2", 6'3" with 5'10" off the bench in the front court, what is that going to look like against some bigger teams? And then you get in the backcourt. And then what is it going to look like when you get against some bigger teams? And then in the front court, they're not much better. They're probably starting 2 6'7" guys in Kyle Rode and Shiloh Robinson. So if they run into a team or a set of teams in the Conference USA that happens to be a little bit on the bigger side, are they going to be able to hold their own in the paint? And that's something I'm a little bit interested to see what will happen there.
Well, not only Conference USA, but they're playing in the Myrtle Beach Invitational. They've got FAU, they've got Charleston, they're going to Alabama, I believe, in the non-conference. So that'll be a big test for them. I think Kyle Rode, he'll be the man this year. Averaged 10.9 points per game last year. Really good catch and shoot 3-point shooter, but he returns as the only double-digit guy. So I think he definitely will have to play a bigger role, and I think he's capable. Porter will have to have a more balanced offensive approach without McGhee. He led the team in assists last year, but he'll have to do more of the scoring as well. Again, I think he's capable. And remember, the last thing about Liberty is they're a defense-first team. Remember where Ritchie McKay comes from. Remember what coaching tree he comes from, the Tony Bennett coaching tree. They're a defensive-first team, and I think they'll be fine. I honestly, personally, would have them ranked higher than 88, but they lost McGhee. I understand that, and that's why they're here at 88, not like 38. I think it makes sense.
Absolutely. One last thing I'll say is that since you mentioned it in the non-conference schedule, we'll find out very quickly whether Liberty is a potential Cinderella factor in March Madness. I think we'll have a good idea of how well they can compete against the top talent in the power conferences. But on to number 87. Who do we have here? Maybe our first power conference team?
Yes, we do. We have Georgetown, who is in our top 100 for the first time in God knows how many years, because they were pretty abysmal under Patrick Ewing, which is kind of funny because he didn't even start out that bad. I think people forget that he started out pretty okay with some sort of potential, we felt. And he actually made that Cinderella run in 2021 through the Big East tournament, made it to the NCAA as an automatic bid. But the last 2 years, they went 6-25 and then 7-25. So obviously it was time to move on. And then Ed Cooley comes along from Providence. Ed Cooley goes to an in-conference school for a reason. Why does he go to an in-conference school? Well, he thinks the ceiling is a lot higher at Georgetown than it is at Providence. And here he did great things at Providence. So I say all this to say that Georgetown is definitely a team that should be trending upward, should be a lot better than last year, should be feeling good as a fan base. We have them at 87. That's not amazing, but I think this is a team that is capable and should be happy with an NIT appearance this year.
Yeah, I agree with you here. It's an interesting dialogue about this Georgetown team because everyone's so excited, right, that Ed Cooley's coming in. Everyone knows it's a fantastic hire. But then you look at this roster, and the cupboard's kind of bare, right? I'll be honest here. The cupboard's kind of bare. You have Jay Heath, who returns for his 9th year of college or however many. It feels like he's been here forever. And then you have Jaden Epps coming in from Illinois. But other than that, I mean, you don't have a lot of proven power conference guys that are on this Hoyas roster. So it'll be really interesting to see how Cooley is able to mold this into what he has been so successful with in Providence. Because if you consider it, Bryce Hopkins stayed, Devin Carter stayed at Providence, right? They have a couple of other options where they could have come over and transferred. Well, I guess Bryce Hopkins they both would have been 2-time transfers, so they might have got their waivers denied. So that could have been a reason to stay at Providence as well. But, I think we have to give Cooley a couple of years, which is a weird thing to say about Georgetown, but that might be the case in this scenario.
Yeah, I see the vision, though. I see the vision. I think most likely they end up well outside of the at-large tournament picture. But I see the vision because you have guys like Epps that maybe he breaks out. Maybe Dontrez Styles from North Carolina, all of a sudden he's getting playing time. He's projected in the starting lineup. Matt Majinski wrote the article. He's his projected small forward. Maybe he breaks out. Ish Masood, I think we know what he is at this point. He's the projected 4. He's a 3-point shooting specialist. And then Supreme Cook, I mean, he is what he is too, probably more of like at a power conference level, like, I don't know, a 10-6 guy or something like that. But just an all-name team from Fairfield. Got to appreciate that. We project them 9th in the Big East, but like I said, I think NIT should be the goal. And if they could move forward with that, they could recruit some guys at a high school, believe it or not. People still do that, and attack the portal a little better in the offseason. Then Georgetown is going in the right direction. But I think just the fact that they're in our preseason top 100 is a big difference from 6-25 and 7-25 over the last 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I'm glad you mentioned that, they're in the Big East, because that Big East is going to be a cutthroat league next year, right? With all of those top teams. And then even like St. John's has Rick Pitino now, stuff like that, right? It's a tough league to make your mark in for the first year. But again, Cooley knows it, right? He's been there for so long. So an interesting team to watch for sure. Dan, who are we wrapping this up with at number 86?
86, we have Utah State, who I know you wanted to talk about a little bit. We project them 5th in the Mountain West. That's pretty par for the course, maybe slightly below par or slightly worse than par for the course for Utah State. Keep in mind the Mountain West is a good conference these days. But yeah, Utah State won 26 games last year. They were a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament. Here's the problem. Ryan Odom dips after just 2 years, and a lot of the players dipped as well. 5 of their starters, all 5 of them are gone. They were all double-digit scorers, so Utah State had the luxury of really spreading out their wealth last year, but everybody's gone. Most notably Stephen Ashworth and Taylor Funk. But the good news is they brought in literally 9 transfers onto their roster, so it's kind of hard to project their starting lineup. Not many of them are proven at this level. So Ben, who are a few guys you want to talk about?
Yeah, this is really fascinating, because if you look at the type of guys that the new coach Danny Sprinkle brought in, they sort of run the gamut. Some coaches might in their first year try and bring in young, talented, but unproven guys. Some people want to bring in more experienced ones at lower levels, but Sprinkle did a little bit of both here. I want to touch on a couple of people. So, for instance, from the power conferences, we have Jan Martinez coming in from Maryland. He actually makes his way back to Utah after starting at Utah. So he starts at Utah, goes to Maryland, back in the state for Utah State. We also have Jackson Grant, a transfer from Washington, that it was a former McDonald's All-American. But then you also have more proven commodities, like my personal favorite is Javon Jackson. Comes in from a D2 school in Southern Nazarene, but he was really effective during his time at that level. And I really am interested in seeing what he can do at this, just such a big jump. So there's a lot of different pieces that I'm intrigued by, but it might take a little while for Sprinkle and the coaching staff to figure it out.
Yeah, I agree. I think Matt Waldman agreed here. He really likes Darius Brown because he's an analytic darling. His 5 assists per game and 40% three-point shooting. That's some good stuff over at Montana State coming with his head coach. A trend that I did find with these transfers is a lot of them are really good three-point shooters. Like I said, you've got Darius Brown. You've also got Ian Martinez from Maryland, Nigel Burris from Idaho, all really good three-point shooters. So I don't know if their tendencies, their style of jacking up a lot of three-point shots, being a really efficient, a big effective field goal percentage type team, I don't think that'll really change. But they will have a different personnel, a completely different one. And with Danny Sprinkle, it's going to be a little bit more of a defensive focus.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But overall, I mean, another set of 5 really interesting teams that we have up at CBB Review. You can read a breakdown of each team that we are releasing every single day until the basketball season starts. Dan, it was a pleasure to do this with you again.
Yeah, and be sure to subscribe to our show here at CBB Review. We have our YouTube show. We also are on Apple or Spotify. So wherever you found us, wherever you're listening to us, please subscribe. We're trying to get those numbers up. And yeah, we also have the Matt's Madness debate show going back up. So check out that episode if you have not already. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening, and take care.